day, everyone. I'm here with the Sunray team, with Tip, Shep, and Sammy. They've developed a military-based show that has went through a online Kickstarter campaign and done very well and is funded. And they're here to talk with us about their backgrounds and then their work on the show and where they plan to take it. So, Tip, I'll let you do the intros here, or the introduction to the project, and you can tell us all about it.
Well, to be honest, the project and where it come from are these. I don't know what way we are, but I think it's these two guys here, who and another guy called James Clark, who unfortunately can't be with us tonight. They're the sort of the stimulus for what is Sunray, and to me, to be part of it now and sort of to get one of the main character roles is incredible. Not only because I know these two dudes from our time as in the Royal Marines, but also for the message it's getting out there, but also the ability to storytell, but do gritty, near true to life storytelling. But it's a thriller. It's a lot of action involved in it, so it's not necessarily true to life or something that we do day to day. But it's just weaves so much that I feel so it's so much part of me. But these guys really, I think. Sammy's probably passing on to Sammy Seeley, who's the main stimulus, who started the whole sort of project.
Oh yeah,
Sammy, take it away.
Cool. I suppose. I'll start from the beginning. Yes, I suppose Sunray for me was it was the output of me managing my own mental health. I'd been having a few wobbles, and I was struggling for a long time, and I was kind of going through this carousel of life of like highs and lows with no consistency, no integrity, no compassion. 1 minute I'd be laser focused and motivated, it'd almost be like I'd be moving faster than everything else. But that would be, that could only be sustained for so long. I wouldn't sleep, I'd barely eat, I'd just live off caffeine, and eventually I'd crash. And then when the crash came in, that's when I'd get the brain fog. I'd get the low moods, really negative thoughts, and like hours had passed, and I would struggle to even, start the first task of the day, and it was really tough. It made it really hard to stay in relationships, manage relationships, friendships, and I think what I would do, the easiest thing to do, would just be cut it loose, and I went through life just bouncing from relationship to relationship and just hurting myself, hurting people, and starting fresh became the norm as such. And I think being in the military, I can't blame the military because it is down to me and my personal experiences. But I think it sustained that lifestyle because I always had somewhere to eat, I always had somewhere to sleep, and it was I would just consume my life with work, whether I was in the Marines or when I was a creative, I'd work 19 hours days as my coping mechanism to sort of block that, whatever the issue was. And you can work those hours, but without consistency and accuracy, ultimately it's pointless. So I eventually came to a decision in my life where I thought, actually, I need to do something about this. And it was supported by my partner, who's now my fiance and the mother of my child, who's 5 weeks old. Hey, Bodie, you can watch this when you're a little bit older. Without her, I probably wouldn't be sat here now, and I wouldn't be working with the amazing team and crew that we've assembled. So I was going through the usual channels of mental health. I'd admitted there was a problem, which was, that's the biggest part. That's the hardest part, that I'd admitted there was a problem. And I admitted that to a few of my Royal Marine friends. And I even said to them, I was like, look, Monday morning, if I change my mind and I don't want to go and get help, I give you the permission to come and knock my door down and drag me there screaming. Luckily, I didn't have to do that, even though I'm pretty sure they still wanted to. And I got myself there, and I took that first step. And as soon as I did, it was like, this weight had been lifted, and I was like, oh Jesus! And I started going through that sort of process of, working out what's wrong and seeing how I could self-help. And not a lot was working. I started exercising more, which helped. I started swimming, that really helped. But there was still something. I was like, I still can't get a grip of this. And someone suggested screenwriting, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I was a freelance photographer and director of photography at the time, but I'd never written before. And first of all, being a bone bootneck, I had to teach myself how to read and write, which took a while. But as soon as I'd done that, I started reading a lot of scripts and watching films and reading the scripts, and then mostly just reading scripts. And I think the first one I read was Few Good Men, and I was just like, wow, this is like the script's better than the film. If you ever get the opportunity, guys, yeah, it's amazing. And I was like, I'm going to give this a go. And the guys, Dan's probably especially tired of hearing this story, but it started with a single post-it note with the word Sunray, genuinely, and it sort of grew into this web of multicolored post-it notes on my front room wall. I think it was 150 post-it notes in the end, of ideas, weapon systems, characters, equipment, scene idea. Yeah, just literally just grew to audio, the sound, the sound design. It just grew into this web on my front room wall, and it kind of stayed there for 3-4 months. I don't know how I got away with that, but I did. And I was like, oh, I think I've got something here. And anything that I thought was negative, it was like a negative thought that I'd put onto a post-it note, I physically deleted. I screwed it up, put it in the bin, and it was quite a practical way to kind of get that negative energy out and channel it into something that, that was fictional. And if I didn't like it, or if I thought something was a little bit too dark, I'd physically delete it. And I was like, oh, I can see this. This is tangible. I can see the result. And that's kind of where Sunray was birthed. It started off as 150 post-it notes. Then it was a short film. And then oh no, I'm going to make a feature. And then I thought, this is too big of a beast for me to manage by myself. And that's when I brought on the true professionals, Dan and James. Without those guys, I again wouldn't be here now. Not only were they very supportive when I was going through a very difficult time, but they also could see the scope of the idea, see the vision, and I didn't think any other creative in the world would be able to understand what the vision was. With them both being former serving Royal Marines, like I was like, these are the only guys that can kind of see it. And as soon as I brought them on, and their amazing skill sets, James with his graphics, and being an amazing filmmaker, and Dan the same, amazing filmmaker, but also amazing at visual effects and editing, one of the best editors I know. I don't really know what I bring to the party now. Coffee, maybe, I don't know. I'm quite good at making coffee, moaning, but yeah, as soon as I brought those guys on,
he's just making this up.
it really came to life. And I think, that was when Sunray was truly birthed. I think when I brought those guys on, and it's just grown ever since there. It's so nice to wake up in the morning and just know this is what I'm doing, and speaking to, and the crew we've assembled and that was the biggest emphasis for us, is that the skills and drills and the tactics need to be real, like the weapon manipulation, how the guys look, how they talk, and how they move. It needs to be real. And we thought the only way we can facilitate this is if we use Royal Marines,
Right.
or soldiers, and that's where the Echo team were birthed. And we kind of had an awareness of the guys. I'd worked with Tip during my Marine career, and this is kind of my payback. I'm pretty sure he caused me a lot of pain during multiple points of my career. So this is why the only reason I'm doing this is so I can make him work 19-hour days. That's the only reason. So
Payback.
Payback. Yeah. And that was kind of where it was birthed. I just kind of waffled there, sorry, but yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing all that. That's it's very insightful and very creative of you to take your trauma and those things and find a way to build something out of it. And unfortunately, some people don't know how to do that and still struggle. But sounds, just from talking with you here and hearing your story, and congrats on your son being born. And it sounds like you're heading in the right direction with everything that's going on, regardless of you know, um, you know, uh, wartime stress that has been brought home. Sounds like you're processing it in the best way that possible. So, can you share a little bit about your background, Sammy? Like, when you
Yes,
joined the Corps and those things?
yeah, sure. Like I never really had any ambitions to join the military growing up, but I always loved climbing. I loved mountaineering, and when I was 18, I actually went traveling to Nepal. And our guide out there, Ted Atkins, who's no longer with us, I'm afraid, but again, amazing climber. He was a former Royal Marine, and over the course of 2 months, he slowly wore me down. And this guy was an absolute legend. He'd summited Everest twice, once solo, and he actually semi-died on the way down, but regained consciousness and made his own way down. And yeah, the guy I was like absolutely starstruck by him. And over 2 months, he wore me down and convinced me like joining the Corps was the right thing to do. And when I came back from my trip, I somehow ended up training to be a plasterer, and I worked at a nightclub for a few years. I just didn't feel like I was mature enough to join. And then one day I woke up and I'm ready. And I love training. I think you don't really learn to soldier at Lympstone. I think what it does do though is it enables you the sort of foundation and a mindset that can only be founded through 32 weeks of hardship. It's only until you move to a fighting unit, I think, that you like really learn to be a soldier and really learn your trade. As soon as I got to a fighting unit, sort of quickly undergo pre-deployment training for Herrick 17. Initially, I was going out there to be a sort of light machine gunner. I'm not a very good shot, so the more rounds I've got, the better. So I was a cover man as a light machine gunner. But just before we were about to go, they needed more volunteers to be search operators and Valormen. I didn't really have a lot to lose at the time. I was young. A lot of the guys who were going out there had families, wives, and I kind of thought, rather it be me than someone like that. So I volunteered for the role. There wasn't a lot of volunteers to be search operators and Valormen, but I thought it sounded pretty cool, and it was a 6-week course, and you learned how to search properly. I was like, this would be cool. And I kind of like the idea of having the responsibility of sort of creating a safe route, for your stack or your multiple. And I did that course and I thought it'd be amazing. But once in theatre, I didn't actually do a lot of it. What I did actually end up doing was training local police for a period in a very small checkpoint where we lived with them and were cohabited with them. I'd say training local Afghan police was as challenging as having a group of bootnecks on a film set. It is literally like herding cats. They were comparable for sure.
How many deployments did you do to Afghanistan?
I only did one to Afghanistan. Yeah, so I did 7 months. I did a 7-month tour, but only one tour to Afghan. Luckily, I think some would say. Later on in my deployment, I transitioned to be a vehicle gunner, which had its own sort of multitude of experiences, which was interesting at times. Once I returned from sort of Afghanistan, I then specialised to be a mountain leader. Obviously, like I said, I was, I love being in the mountains. I love climbing, and what I loved about that role is that it sort of focused on surveillance and reconnaissance, and like traditionally, consisted of being in smaller teams, heading out a few weeks ahead of the main attack forces, and sort of gaining information on enemy numbers, routines, weapon systems. It was a challenging role, and the course and the selection was awful. But at the same time, it was still really enjoyable. And I had that hunger for that responsibility that you're part of a very small team that was gaining information that was so vital to the wider picture and the wider battle space. you know, and I loved that the data we were collecting, the pictures we were taking, the information we were gathering from our recce's and stuff like that. It was, you know, sort of imperative to the successful outcome of like the overall mission arc. And again, within that team, I somehow specialised as a light machine gunner again. I just think it was because I was the youngest and no one else wanted to carry the gun. And then I also specialised as a cameraman, and that's kind of where I fell back in love with this sort of the art and process of still imagery. Oh, my lights have gone off. Of still imagery. And I actually studied film and media at school. And once I'd picked up the camera again, I had access to this amazing camera equipment, you know, courtesy of the Royal Marines. And I kind of just fell back in love with the art. You know, even though I was doing a lot of reconnaissance photography, it kind of gave me the desire again to sort of start taking pictures again, and, you know, just start exploring what I enjoyed. And it kind of then came to a position where I enjoyed doing that more than being a Royal Marine. I don't think, you know, being wet and cold for 90% of your adult life, I don't think that will help. Yeah, I think that sort of motivated me towards one decision. But I think one day I did wake up. You know, I love being a Royal Marine. I love my time in Afghanistan. I love my time as a mountain leader. And I think, like, one day I literally did I remember I woke up and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do this. And I think I'm a firm believer that if you don't want to do something, you should probably just change your mind. And it's never too late. No matter what point in life, you can always change your mind and change the path that you're on. And
It's true.
I then at that point, literally overnight, went, you know, my mission now is to become a professional creative. I didn't know in what genre shots. I didn't know if I wanted to be a grip or a sparky or a DP or a director or a writer. I just knew I needed to do something creative. And
now a sparky, that's an electrician. That's just
yeah.
I've never heard it called that before, so it's just a good guess. But some sparks could fly if you struggle as an electrician, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all that, Sammy. That's
You're welcome.
It's a lot of in-depth thought you've put into where you're going, and a lot of, I'd say, rooted in instincts and rooted in passion as well, which people forget those points sometimes in life, especially when you come home. If you're struggling with some post-traumatic stress, your instincts and some of your common sense can get hijacked almost.
Yeah.
You know, having seen that a few different times. But, you know, I'm glad you've put this together, and I've seen the trailer of it. Looks great. You know, thanks. I'd like to move on and chat with Dan, if that's okay with you, Sammy, unless you had any safe grounds.
No, of course, yeah. Give Daddy's moment.
You're up, Shep.
How's it going?
It's great. You know, why don't you share a little bit about your background and then how you intersected here in this great project?
Sure. So it's actually quite a similar story in many ways. So I'll take up a lot less of your time than Sam. But yeah, very similar. I mean, I guess I'll start from the beginning of my career as well. In terms of, I guess we approached it slightly differently. I kind of for a long time knew I wanted to join the Marines. It was the challenge that drew me to it. I knew I wanted to join the military, but I wanted to join the best I could, and I decided after a lot of research, because that's the kind of person I am, that the Marines was the one for me. So I kind of dedicated a lot of my teams to that purpose, ended up joining and passing out. And yeah, I mean, it's a great challenge, and definitely something I'd recommend to anyone. And then I immediately went away on a trip on ship for a few months, got to see a lot of the world, and had a really good time, did loads of training. And then it was shortly after that I actually met Sam. So we ended up in the same troop for a while. We served together for a while. And we actually deployed to Afghan together, although at that point we were in different troops. But at times we were in the same place. Again, did the same sort of thing, training the Afghan local police, which I could agree with Sam that that's a nightmare at times, but also a really interesting challenge and something I didn't really see myself doing out there. But it completely changed my expectations for what we'd be doing. And again, it was an experience, and something that, again, in many ways I did enjoy, but also, like Sam, was operationally deployed once, and you could say that's also very lucky in many ways. And came back to the UK, and I spent pretty much the rest of my career in the Marines as a general duties rifleman. Similarly, I specialised with the GPMG most of the time, but I never actually got round to taking up a specialisation. I was planning to, it just never happened for me. And I kind of, very similarly, again, ended up with a camera in my hands a lot of the time. We went away on a long trip and didn't have a photographer with us, and I studied photography, GCSE and A level, with a bit of film as well. And it was kind of the natural, oh, you've done some photography, here's a camera, off you go. And it kind of reignited my passion for it. It's something I'd always enjoyed when I was younger, and never really fully sort of pursued it until then. And I realised that actually it was really good, really enjoyable. So that kind of led me down the creative route. I started doing similarly some freelance directed photography, and stuff like that. Mostly commercial work, and I think that's where me and Sam worked on a few projects together. We stayed in touch because we ended up going down the same route, having served together. And I think at the time, just before Sunray, I was sort of in a similar. I wasn't in the same headspace as Sam in many ways, but I was kind of finding myself in that loop of just doing the same thing over and over again with similar projects, where I didn't really have much control over the project. It was kind of handed to me on a plate and said, right, go create this. And a lot of time it's stuff that obviously I'd put a lot of effort into, and I kind of felt that at the end of it, it wasn't always what I was wanting to create. I wanted to go on and do bigger, better things. More to the point, I wanted to do stuff that had a reason, had a message. And a lot of what I was doing was highly commercialized. So when Sam kind of pitched to me this idea of Sunray and this idea of a drama, what we coined it as a tactical thriller, with a combination of sort of narrative, dramatics, and realistic style tactical work, I was just in straight away. I loved the idea. It was right down my street, and it was something that we discussed a lot of the times. I think when it first came up, we were just talking about how can we make some really cool stuff that's realistic, and then it grew really quickly into actually how can we say something with this? What's the message behind it? Why are we doing it? And I think we all kind of because obviously at this point James came on board as well, and we kind of settled on this idea that we need to acknowledge things like PTSD, survivor's guilt with people in the military, and not in a way to demonize it, but to bring the conversation and have it be heard. Excuse me. And yeah, so that's kind of where I came into it, and I think a lot of the questions we've had really is as former bootnecks, former Marines, I think a lot of people look at it and go, hold on, how have you gone from that job into making films, make believe, pretend? How does that work? And the way I see it is I think when you do come home and you transition from that sort of military lifestyle to something different, I think what really helps is to have a goal, a purpose. And I think filmmaking for me, just like Sam and James, is very you couldn't get a bigger purpose when you're all grouped together and you bring people together to one common goal that everyone can get behind and everyone believes in, and it's a message that you feel like you can send. I think there's something really powerful in that, and again, it was really important for us to have military actors. So we managed to find a ragtag group of guys that were all former bootnecks who also had dipped their toe into acting, or more than dipped their toe in some cases. And I think it's the perfect storm, really. I would never say that it's bad that actors don't have military experience, but I also believe that when you're telling a story, a lot of the time the story comes through experience, and where else do you get real life experience than from being in the military? And we've got a whole crew and cast of people that have absolute wealth of experience that we can draw on and sort of use to tell these stories in a really powerful but also legitimate way. And it's like Tip said at the beginning, it's not that the story we're telling in Sunray is it's not a true story. Far from it. It's very fictional. It's very dramatized. But the way in which we approach it with the way that people are going to manipulate weapon systems and clearing for a room. How many times does as a military or former military guy, you sat there in front of the TV saying, "Why is he walking in front of the door? Fatal funnel. He's going to get shot." And we want to kind of avoid all that and do it some justice, I think. And that's kind
Make
of
it realistic.
the motivation there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Absolutely. And you're in great company too. I mean, how many? I believe Sean Connery, Anthony Hopkins, Michael Caine, Roger Moore. I mean, there's a lot of other. Basil Rathbone, the person who played Sherlock Holmes back years ago, old Sherlock Holmes. He was, I think, a World War I hero. Yeah, those are some classic, actors from the United Kingdom. And stage presences. So, you're in great company, going that route as a creative. So it just came to mind to share.
I think that's one thing we found as well was the sort of similarities between the sort of a productive set or creative set and the military. The similarities are uncanny, but yet they're so similar but so different at the same time. It's amazing.
Very true. I've been on set many times, and it has a certain hierarchy. You have your first and second ADs that are almost like sergeants running a platoon, running a squad, and you've got the different departments and stuff that would, be similar to comm and logistics, and some
G4.
admin. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of similarities. I think I'd heard this, that when a lot of the veterans came home, at least here in the U.S., and California is on the West Coast, and a lot of the battles in the Pacific took place with the Army, the Navy, and the Marines in particular. And a lot of those men and women decided to stay in California, whether L.A. or San Diego or those places. They stayed here instead of going back to Minnesota or Iowa or some cold places in the U.S. And so they brought with them on a film set that used to be called a mag of film. I'm out. I need a mag of film. It's like, it's like, how many times does somebody else say mag that's in the film industry, unless they have had some military experience, especially in some of the fighting on the island hopping campaign. So that's something I heard that had come from the military. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was more structure that we see in today's film world that does have traces to World War II, both in the British and in the U.S. forces, or from the U.S. forces.
I think it also as well is when you work with, a passionate team that's got a common goal, that sort of collaboration, you get that shorthand as well.
Yep.
And you get that shorthand if you're in an elite team or, a small 6-man team that's working, 200-300 miles behind enemy lines. You need that shorthand because you haven't always got the opportunity to be able to speak to each other or see each other, and I think that's the thing I enjoy most. I think is just having that sixth sense with a group of people where you want to move a light, but someone's already done it because they can read your mind almost. It's I think that's the most rewarding part.
There is a sense of fulfillment from having intimacy there on set. And then military shorthand is, where you got someone there with that look and that nod, and you kind of know where it's going to go. But nonetheless, Shep, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Because if not, then we're going to with Tip for a bit.
No, not really. Not at this moment, I guess. That's kind of my story. Again, in many ways, it's quite similar to Sam, so I don't think there's anything new. But it's like you say with being on a film set, is people bond in adversity, and I think there's plenty of adversity to be found on a film set. And I think it really is. It's almost like being back in a troop, in a section, being on the film set. So it's good.
I think with that as well, I think it's very much like your role, as an actor on a set or in theatre, you look at the role of actor, all the key words like performance, rehearsal, all these things, they just map across to my life in the military. You mean exactly the same. You mean every op you do, you rehearse, and that's what makes it as best you can or as slick as you can. But it won't survive contact. Then you've got to be able to sort of, be dynamic and bounce back. And again, it's just for me. Maybe that's why I'm an actor now. There's just so many things just bounce into you and go, well, that's just like the military. That's what we do.
Very true. Very similar. The work on stage, if you mess up or something in the middle of your performance, you have to keep your bearing and character and get back on your lines. Fix the set piece. You're going to we'll just walk over the set piece that fell down and wait till intermission to fix it. Don't want to break character. How many times have you rehearsed something in the military that doesn't go right? You're not allowed to break character. You have to stay, and you can't lose that.
My sort of military background began in the middle 80s, mid 1980s, and in fact, before then, probably late 70s, when I was a very young child, I was like going, I want to be a Royal Marines Commando. And being an Irishman, that's not really the going thing. But my family said, oh, you'll grow up and you'll grow out of it. But I didn't, and it was something I had to do. So I joined up in 1986, and the roller coaster began from there. And I done just short of 30 years as a regular, joined up as a Marine, went through every single rank up to captain. So warrant officer first class, then captain. And I left as a captain and seamless transfer into the reserves. So again, for me, I'd done that to help with that transition to move into civilian life. But at the end of my adventure, realization became to me that I had to possibly do something else when I was in the same commando unit as my son, and I wrote the cross, and my son's in the same unit, and I was like going, right. I think it's time for me to go. And as I put my reading glasses on, I went, I think it's time to me to go and do something else. But with that, it came another point in my life where I go, what am I going to do? What is 30 years as a Royal Marines Commando? What else, what more can I do? My initial plan was to become a postman, delivering post in my local area in England where I live now. And then I realized I don't think I'll be able to do that. It'll probably bore me after a week or so. And it was, although it's that transition in what you do. And then same as these guys, I felt that I had to do something creative and go somewhere and find out, like, what can I do that I can tell stories with. I'm an Irishman and a Royal Marine, so we're forever telling stories. So that's what I had to do. So I looked at creative writing and, making storytelling. But beside it, there was a degree course for acting. And I was like going, and then it was that time where I mapped across all those skills. And I always put it down to that moment where you're running a shura in Afghanistan and you're delivering, you're speaking to people, and these are just people who are trying to live their lives as best as they can as well. But you want to give them a message. So in a way, I'm going to, what message? You have to deliver your mission. So what message do I have to give them? So you've got nothing against any of these people or individuals, but you do have to put on a persona to go, you need to understand this. So he takes the message on board. So straight away you're acting, no matter what anyone says, you're acting at that stage. So I realized then going, oh, I think I can act. And it's my way of telling stories and being creative. And I have to admit, since I've done it, went through university and become an actor, my saving grace at the time, I have to admit, has been being able to sort of like sideline and move away as a Royal Marine in the reserves and being able to sort of like still practice, things that I feel it's like riding a bicycle to me, being a Royal Marines Commando, and then break away and sort of grow in my new career. And the life experience I've had as a Royal Marine and my life back in Ireland, bringing it to where I am now, is invaluable, absolutely invaluable. And my experiences when it comes to performing, the hardest thing for me at actor training was breaking down that wall that we build into our emotional background. And it was coming when I had to do emotional roles. I sort of hit a wall and go, no, hold on a second. For me to go to that place, I had to go to places where it was all my friends or absent friends I've lost in operations, and times when I lost them, and I'd have to tap into that. And I thought, this is only acting. This is cheating. This isn't real. This is cheating. And it took me a while. And I feel when I act now, I always have all my friends that I've lost in operations or in life generally, just watching down on me going, no, you do it. You do it. And it allows me to sort of tap into those emotional things, which are just normal human emotions, and go to them and draw on them to help with the acting experience. Because I want the credibility of me as an actor to be complete. So I want people to go, I believe that. I believe that. And that's, I think, with Sunray and the creation that the guys have done and the way we're looking forward to it, it's all believability. It's completely fictional, but I want people to look at that screen and go, I believe that. I empathize. I sympathize. I love. I hate. I want people to have that roller coaster as you get in theater or you get on screen. We're going, at the end of it, you're going, either you're thinking about it, you've enjoyed it, you've got a smile, you're crying, but at the end of it, you've had an experience. And I think Sunray will hit that at every level. And I think it'll hit a wide spectrum of society, not only service people.
Very powerful. That's
And I could go on all night. You know what I'm like.
You've got great stories, Tip. It's great that you've been able to comment on a deep level with your experiences as a Royal Marine, but also with the people that are no longer with us that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And look at them as a form of inspiration. They are not here to continue their lives, and you are able to follow a dream, and you're still able to have them with you in your heart and your spirit, and it's vital.
And I think all of them, and the people I've operated with,
Yes.
I think everybody has a little bit of survivor's guilt. Why?
Yes.
Why are we here? Why am I able to be talking to you in LA? And you know what I mean? And I had a message tonight from one of my friends. One of my friends, a triple amputee, lost his arm and two legs in Afghanistan, and he's such an incredible, inspirational character. And he just sent a little message, and it just said, "This puts it into perspective." And it just everything in life. And it just hits. And every now and then I just tap back into that and go, "That's exactly what it's about." We've all got the honor of making magic for everybody to enjoy, and I think that to me is whatever that magic is, whether it's educational, whether it's entertaining, but as long as it just gives positivity and a bit of something to add to people's lives. And I think that's the perspective. It's when you've come from places like that and you're able to sort of make magic and give it to people now, that what can be better, and to the memory of all our friends.
Very true. A lot of depth in your acting and performance in work, and it is definitely shows. Thanks for sharing these thoughts of yours and about those men that still influence you still, and how you want your work to be and based in reality, which I think is the true mark of an artist. You're on the right path. You have done some Shakespeare training as well, and have done some of those things as well. So
Can't beat a bit of Shakespeare. I just, by the way, I was in ML like Sammy, so that's where he's getting his payback from.
I'm the captain now, Tip. I'm the captain now.
Oh yes. Oh!
Go fill sandbags outside, Tip. But I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you got to set 1 second late, so go fill sandbags. That definitely sounds like some Marine fun there, or go polish the sink with a scrub brush.
Somebody has to do it. Sammy. My turn.
Sammy's got a white glove for inspection. You know, runs across, find a little bit of dust, and do it all over again. Yeah, this has been wonderful. Thank you for your time here today.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care.
Guys, stay safe, everyone, yeah?
Cheers.